This is another installment of Back in the Day! Woo! And in this installment, I'll be talking about how hardcore gaming is just not its hardcore gaming itself, but the term hardcore has been misappropriated. The definition of what is a real hardcore gamer has just been lost. So I'm going to establish what hardcore games used to be, and basically I'm going to talk about how it's been mishandled and misinformed and generally just ill-used after the cut. Okay, I'm back, and it's time to get down to it. Basically, I am so tired of people saying, I'm a hardcore gamer. And then you ask them, oh, what games do you play? They say Halo, Call of Duty, Killzone, Battlefield, Medal of Honor. These are not hardcore games, okay? They aren't. You know what hardcore games were back in the day? They were games that required a huge amount of skill to master. You couldn't just jump into them and expect to be successful. As a matter of fact, you would initially get your ass kicked. But as you put in time, effort, and energy into learning the game, and to figuring out and to getting your skills up to par and figuring out the difficulty curve, you would eventually start to master the game. Okay? Those were hardcore games. Like, you know, Tetris is not a hardcore game. It has some difficulty to it, but it's not a hardcore game, okay? Now, you want to know a hardcore old school game? Super Mario 2, aka the Lost Levels, aka the real sequel to Super Mario World, the first one, Super Mario Land, okay, the first one. That's right. Most people don't. Super Mario Brothers, the first one. Most people don't think about that. Oh, that's not hardcore. That is a hardcore ass game. Okay. It is. Okay, because you're gonna get your ass. You're gonna lose. You're gonna have several game overs before you figure out how things are. And the only way you're gonna beat that game is by putting in the hard work and energy and time in order to memorize where everything is. And that is what a hardcore game is. It's where you literally put hard work, effort, energy into the game. There's no immediate cathartic feedback. This game is not pleasurable, okay? Animal Crossing is a casual game, okay? Battlefield, casual. You run around shooting people. And as you get better at it, you shoot people, that's your cathartic release. Oh, look at my achievement, look at my score. That's very, instant feedback. You want to know a hardcore, a current hardcore game? Harvest Moon. Yes, I said it. Harvest Moon is a hardcore game. You want to know why? Because basically, you put in a ton of time and energy in that game. And you don't get a lot out of it initially, okay? You don't have a lot of money initially, but as you get better, as things get better, as you get better, as things get bigger, as you begin to, learn the rules of the game and get better at things, you realize, hey, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. You begin to learn how the system works. That's very hardcore, but it's not initially a fun game, okay? And I'm okay with that. I don't know when these hardcore dude bro assholes came in and took over hardcore, what hardcore truly means. I'll put it in an example that's not video game rooted, so maybe some people can understand it, okay? When I was like 10 years old, I went to an older cousin's house and I played D&D for the very first time. Well, I had played it before, but I had played a casualized version of it where everything was simplified and much more streamlined. Now, there's nothing wrong with a casualized, streamlined game. Okay, like Chrono Trigger is a more casual RPG than Final Fantasy VI or 5 or even 4. Okay, Chrono Trigger is pretty damn, straightforward. It doesn't have random battles. You see most enemies, so you can avoid some battles. I mean, but that still doesn't change the fact it's a good game. Okay. But back to my original point. When I was 10, I went to my cousin's house, and I played a real Dungeons & Dragons game that wasn't casualized. It was hardcore. And when I say hardcore, I mean, like, we spent like an hour and a half making our characters, coming with backstories, really getting into the nitty-gritty of what it meant to be, Valthorn, the Dark Elf, the Dark Elf Swordmaster character I created. I still use him sometimes a day. I still have his character sheet somewhere in my basement somewhere. But that's pretty damn badass. I mean, and we basically played D&D for like the whole weekend, and it was great. It was friggin' awesome. I adventured. I didn't die once, thank God, because I cheated a little bit, because I played a lot of board games. I knew how to throw the dice so that I'd get like really good rolls almost all the time. But yeah. Okay. If you want to see an even more hardcore version of RPGing, go LARPing. Now, I've never LARPed, but I have a friend who is really into LARPing, and that's taken RPGing to a whole new level. Like, I mean, like, it used to be the most hardcore you could get was like D&D with the papers and the pencils and the dice and the little figurines. That was hardcore. LARPing takes that to the next level, because these people dress up and like spend like 3-4 days a weekend, a day. I mean, just out in the woods, in a field, like with tents and fighting with like weapons that they made. I mean, this LARPing is ooh, that's hardcore, man. Now, that doesn't mean that people who, play a simplified version of an RPG is any less, but hardcore has been misappropriated. People put it onto anything. This is a hardcore experience. Let me tell you something. Unless you're playing a shooter where you're instantly being killed, because that's what would happen if you got shot with a high-powered rifle, even if it wasn't to the head. It just go through your shit. You'd be dead. I mean, it's just hardcore is bandied about too easily today. I mean, it's too easy to say this is a hardcore game. I think they need to reevaluate what hardcore truly means. Because we had hardcore games back in the day. We had games that, like, one-hit kills. Contra, the original Contra, Contra 2, Contra 3, Super Contra, Super C, all of those games, those were hardcore. Metal Slug, hardcore. Yeah, we played hardcore games. Gradius, Super R-Type, games that required skill and persistence. Those were hardcore games. Playing a game just because your friends are in the clan, that's not hardcore. Jesus. Stop. Seriously, stop. Anyway, that was just me talking about back in the day what was really hardcore. If anyone has any back in the day suggestions, please leave them in the comments section. I will try and come up with new suggestions. I'll also try and come out with a new movies you should have watched this weekend, and it's going to be a good one. We'll be covering one of my favorite movies of all time. So, keep it up.